This is Special Education Law. My name is Steve Cherry. I am a student at Southern Utah University, and this is the topic brief that I wrote in the slideshow presentation. What is it? What is special education law? Well, it's federal and state law. It was written and made into law in 1975, and since has been there's been addendums that have been put in to update some things over the course of the years. Specialized instruction, speaking specifically to academics, helping students to have the best opportunity to learn the instruction that's been given to them in the classroom. And then the third is a focus in emotional and behavioral issues, helping students who struggle with emotional or behavior concerns to receive the instruction to help them in the classroom. One accommodation for someone an example for someone who might struggle with a behavioral issue is they simply can be seated close to the teacher's desk. So that's what I'm referring to. IDEA, Individuals with Disability in Education Act. This is federally funded. In 2011, nearly 9% of students who are receiving education fell under the umbrella of IDEA, which is equivalent to nearly 6 million students. They range from ages 3 to 18 and possibly up to 21, depending on what their services were that the students were receiving. It's designed to continue their education, to help them be successful in education. It's also designed to prepare them to be employable so that they can have a job after they're done with school, and to also teach them some form of independence. For example, if a student who might be in a cluster class who is going to need services their whole life, they're not a student who's going to go on to college. They have some severe disabilities that impair their ability to function on their own. One example could be that in the classroom, in addition to learning some instructional academic pieces, is to receive some skills on how to be independent, some skills on how to be employable. For example, in Jordan District, we have students who go to a program called South Valley, where they learn some hands-on skills to help them and prepare them for their life, so that they can have some kind of a trade to provide for themselves as they move into adulthood. It's also designed to be LRE, or least restrictive environment. We want students to learn, and we want to give them as much support as possible, but we don't want to give them the support and make it easier for them. We want them to have a challenge. We want them to have the opportunity to learn without spoon feeding the students. In other words, we want to give them the least restrictive environment to help learn, but at the same time give them the skills and the support that they need to be successful. IEP, or Individual Education Act, is mandated by IDEA. It's designed to help teachers adapt their teaching techniques. Some examples you can see there: extended time on assignments, tests, quizzes, projects, things like that. The idea of an inclusion class, where there's a special education student in the class who's receiving some additional services in the class, accommodations there. There's also the co-taught class, where students are included in a class. There are two teachers in the class, one of which is a general ed teacher, the other one is a special ed teacher, and combined those two together it helps the students who are struggling, who are receiving special ed services, to receive the instructional time that they need that is written into their IEP. And simply proximity. Where is the student sitting? How is the teacher interacting with the student? Is the student sitting close to the teacher's desk? Is the student sitting at the front of the room to reduce or eliminate distractions? Those kinds of things. The individual it's designed to give the accommodations to meet academic needs. That's the whole purpose of an IEP, or to level the playing field, to make it fair for all students who are receiving education. And there's federal funding. Funding is available to states for those who follow the IDEA, Individual with Disability Education Act. They receive funding for those services. Section 504 is another area in which students can receive accommodations to help them with their education. It's more broad, more general than a Section 504. Very different. No testing is involved with Section 504, whereas with an IEP, obviously students need to be tested. Parents can request that their student be put on a 504 to help them with their disability, whether it's a physical disability or an emotional disability. For example, we had a student who suffered from Crohn's disease. His 504 was simply written that he was allowed to leave the classroom without teacher permission anytime he needed to go to the bathroom. So that would be an example of a physical disability. Emotional disabilities, most commonly the ADHD students who are suffering with the inability to focus, and those accommodations could simply be shortened assignments, seated in the front of the room, or they're allowed to have a stress ball or something like that to keep them occupied. It requires a plan for each party involved: the student, the parent, and the teacher. One of the ideas behind a 504 is to help students to learn how to be independent and advocate for themselves. So, a student who is going to take a test, who's on a 504, will remind the teacher that they're on a 504, and that one of their accommodations is that they're allowed to go to a smaller setting to take the test. The parent's responsibility is to follow up with teachers, ask questions, and communicate with all parties involved to make sure that the 504 is being followed properly. And the teacher's responsibility is to make sure that the 504 accommodations are being followed in their classroom. There's no funding available for students with a 504. One of the things that I found interesting was all students, any student who has a disability, who claims to have a disability, or who appears to have a disability, can be on a 504. And that's something that I found to be very interesting. So in conclusion, these are the three concepts discussed in my topic brief: IDEA, IEP, and Section 504, that give students the opportunity to receive a fair and equitable educational experience in the classroom.